In our last video, we talked about having a waste-free mindset. This means making a commitment to avoid waste wherever possible. One tool that might help you to apply this mindset is called the waste hierarchy. You might have heard it called the 5 R's. And it has these 5 words that start with the letter R, and they're in descending order of effectiveness. So we have refuse at the top, being the most effective, then reduce, then reuse, then rot, and then recycle. So the waste-free mindset kind of sits above these 5 R's. And if you want to pick another word that starts with R that would be applicable here, we would say reframe. Reframing the way that you think about waste and your consumption. So in this video, I'm going to talk a bit more about this concept of refuse, saying no to things. Given that it's the most effective action in the waste hierarchy, but it's also the concept that's most often overlooked. Now, there's a few reasons why the refuse concept gets overlooked. The first is corporate capitalism. Governments and businesses who sell stuff don't want you buying less because it disrupts their business model. It reduces their profits. The act of people buying stuff is what gives governments and businesses power and wealth. And another tricky thing that those in power do to continue that endless consumption and growth is find ways to take advantage of some of those steps lower down the waste hierarchy, particularly recycling, where their products are fed back into the system and they can monetize that system through the recycling industry. And it's a convenient way for many businesses to effectively run business as usual consumption models whilst selling the idea that they're doing the right thing for the environment. Now, the second reason why I think the refuse concept gets overlooked is because of nostalgia. People don't like giving up the things that they're used to, that give them reassurance and that are bedded in feelings of comfort from past memories. Nostalgia can be really strong in some areas, particularly when it comes to food and drink. It's just a very powerful emotion and can be really difficult to override when it comes to consumption. And the third reason why I think refuse gets overlooked is because of the dominant media narrative. Marketers and advertisers constantly try to coax people into buying stuff. They try to sell you the idea that you need to have the latest brand or the latest model. Advertisers will try to convince you, or at least sell you the idea that you need some particular object because it's safer, it makes you look cool, or it's convenient, or it will fulfill some feelings of desire that you have, or that it will increase your self-worth. And marketers can also be really subtly giving you FOMO, the fear of missing out. If you've got a mobile phone and it has 1 camera, and the new phone model comes out and it has 3 cameras, and you see ads about how good that camera is and other people taking photos with that camera and the quality looks better and there's an expectation that you have a better quality photo, and everything kind of compounds to convince you that getting the latest model is a justified action. So it can be really insidious the way that the media narrative can shape our consumption habits. So have a think about the times in your life when you find it particularly hard to say no to buying stuff. Think about the accumulation of your belongings over your lifetime. Think about all the things that you used to have, but which you don't have anymore. And that might be kind of tricky. You might need to look at some old photos to remind yourself of the furniture that you used to have, and the kitchenware and the clothes and the books and the toys and the games and the just the ornaments and bric-a-brac and whatever else was in your house 20 years ago. How much of it is still there? How much of it is being used or is useful? Chances are that a lot of the belongings that you or we used to have a long time ago are now in landfill. Unless they are really high quality, really well cared for, really well stored, it's really easy to understand why saying no is difficult, especially if the overwhelming pressures are making us feel like saying no to stuff makes us less safe, less cool, less relevant. The notion that by not buying stuff, that the economy will crumble, will fall in a heap. But that's simply not true. That's not the only pathway, the only alternative. The ability to refuse things and to say no to things can convey some really powerful, positive messages. Firstly, it refutes the economic model that governments and corporations are trying to propel, that they want us to prop up and to perpetuate. Saying no to stuff is a way of saying no to that model, that way that our society is structured, that we're seeing to be increasingly harmful to the planet. The second message I think saying no gives is that we're demonstrating that we need a lot less new stuff than advertisers would have us think. Thirdly, you don't need the latest model of something to be cool. Just quietly being cool is kind of overrated. We just need to find ways to thrive as humans. The notion of being cool, if it relies on endless consumption of stuff that's harming the planet and people and nature, is an overrated concept. And lastly, by refusing to buy new stuff, we're agreeing to take positive steps towards a way of living that is less consumptive, slightly less self-indulgent, and it's just less superficial. If we were to do that en masse, then it would send a very powerful message and create some enormous positive change. And there are going to be critics who will say that regardless of us saying no and refusing to buy stuff or buy into things, companies, producers are going to make those items anyway. That is true to an extent. However, companies, businesses are constantly checking their sales and modifying their production in response to that. So I guess it comes down to the question of, when it comes to refusing, is asking yourself, do I need this thing? Do I need it? And sometimes you will need to buy a new thing, and that's okay. That's totally fine, But there's being able to distinguish between the new things that you need versus the new things that are indulgences of consumption that, when done by millions of people, cause great harm in different ways. One of the reasons why refuse is so effective and so powerful is that it avoids waste being produced along every step of the consumption chain. So by not buying that thing, there is no waste being produced in the extraction of resources, in the manufacture of things, in the distribution of those goods, in the sale of those goods, and all the electricity and refrigeration and power and whatever else is needed to maintain those items. There's no waste being produced in the degradation and disposal of those items or the use of those items. Every step of that chain, you're avoiding waste by just simply saying no. No, I don't need it. There's something else I can do that will allow me to get by in a much less harmful way. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on your relationship with new stuff and your ability to refuse it. Let me know in the comments below any thoughts that you have on this issue. I think it's a really interesting one, and it's a topic that's not often talked about, including amongst kind of zero waste, waste-free social media circles. But I think we need to be talking about this concept of refusing a lot more. And I'll see you in the next video.